together, much louder. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, United States Marine Corps. Semper Fi.
Technical difficulties. I absolutely hate technical difficulties. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dueling Mics. I am your host, JK'z. I am unsupervised, and I have unlimited access to Amazon Prime because, well, it's just a click and you buy stuff. That's why I have two mics. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an awesome guest today, an individual who spent 22 years in the military. I want to welcome Mr. Mike Ritrovato to the show. Mike, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, 22 years in the Marines. You started, I'm going to assume, in Camp Lejune, and then you went out to Camp Pendleton?
Yeah, so I went to boot camp originally in Camp Pendleton back in 2000. And then after graduating boot camp and my MOS schooling, or military occupational specialty schooling, I went out to Camp Lejune, where I was stationed there from 2000 until 2007.
Okay. And obviously I can see, and so are all of our viewers, I can see your, I don't want to say suit, I don't want to disrespect that, but I can see your, and I don't want to say outfit, I can see, I'm obviously I never served in the military, so I absolutely respect you right off the bat, but I see your stuff hanging in the back.
Yeah, those are my dress blue uniforms, and that was the rank that I retired at as a master sergeant. So that was my essentially retirement gift. Whenever I retired, the Marines kind of came together and got that for me whenever I retired as a master sergeant.
That is incredible. What made you decide to join the military back in 2000?
So whenever I was in high school, I wasn't really the big high school type person or schooling type person, and I didn't really have a plan after high school, and I didn't have a plan to go to college or anything like that. And I needed something to get some education and travel and adventure. And then I went into my counselor's office and I saw this little pamphlet. Back in the day, you went to the office, it had like a little pamphlet in there, and I grabbed one of the pamphlets and filled it out, and I literally saw the dress blues on the pamphlet, and I was like, oh, I filled that out. And then a couple of days later, the recruiter contacted me, and the rest is history.
And which I'm going to assume that a lot of people, that's how they get involved in the military. I know some people had plans. So when you got out to Camp Pendleton, obviously a different world. I don't know, whereabouts are you from?
So I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. So you go out.
That's where I enlisted at, out of St. Louis, Missouri. And that, in 2000. And then of course, went to boot camp in Paris or in San Diego, and then Camp Lejune, and then back to Camp Pendleton in February of 2013.
Okay. And when you decided to enlist, what did you have a plan, or were you just I don't, if that sounded wrong by just asking like that, I apologize. What was your plan when you joined the military?
So I really didn't have a plan as far as a job. I just kind of knew that the military was just something that I wanted to do. And if you're going to do the military, why not do the best, the Marine Corps?
Semper Fi. Yeah, I have a very good friend of mine who spent over 20 years as a Marine. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So obviously you joined in 2000, and on this show we believe and respect this. It's the foundation of this show. We all know what happened a year later in 2001. If you want to talk about anything about your time in the military, including that, some of the highs that you had, some of the travels where you've been and stuff like that, some of the skills that you've learned, because I'm going to assume that you just don't make Master Sergeant by mistake. So
yeah. So on September 11th, when that happened, I was actually on Camp Lejune, North Carolina. I was actually getting breakfast that morning. We had just got done working out. And then I was sitting there watching the news, getting my breakfast, getting ready to go down to work, and then saw that on the news. And of course, just like everyone, we were just kind of shocked. And then they locked down the base and, all kinds of stuff after that. So we had that happen September 11th. And then shortly after that, I was actually, when they did the initial invasion in Iraq, I was attached to what's called a Marine Expeditionary Unit, or a MU. And I did that in 2003. And then I did the same thing in 2005, where essentially we just go out abroad into the Mediterranean. I went to like Italy, Spain, Portugal, Albania. And then shortly after the deployment in 2005, they needed volunteers in one company to go to Iraq. And then in Iraq, 2006, I went to Iraq from May to October of 2006. And then after that, I went on what's called recruiting duty, where we essentially get individuals from high school and just kind of essentially where I started at in high school, talking to a recruiter. That's what I was doing from 2007 to 2010, talking to, young individuals and educating them about the Marine Corps and, getting them to join the Marine Corps. And then after that, I went back to Camp Lejune, where I was a sergeant or a staff sergeant at the time, and I was a section leader. So I essentially graduated up from driving the vehicle, commanding the vehicle, to where now I was a section leader, to where I was in charge of 4 amphibious assault vehicles, and then eventually made it up to where I was a platoon sergeant there in Camp Lejune, commanding 12 vehicles. And then after that, I also did a couple of deployments to Okinawa, Japan, as a platoon sergeant. And then after that, I transitioned over to the amphibious assault schoolhouse, where I was actually teaching young individuals that just came into the Marine Corps. I was teaching them at the Military Occupational Specialty School for the amphibious assault vehicle.
Okay. That is, you've just.
I know that's a lot of stuff.
No, I'm just trying to choose my words correctly. I have the utmost respect for anybody in the military, especially seeing how I never put my life on the line. And I'm just trying to choose my words correctly so as to not disrespect anything. So you've been around the world, and it seems like you've had many opportunities within the Marine Corps. And as you had said, that the assault amphibious crewman is what you did.
That's
correct.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Yes. So the assault amphibian crewman, that's essentially what you start out as in that field. So you start out essentially as like a rear crewman, to where you're essentially keeping control of the infantry that are in the back. You have 18 infantrymen inside the back of one of those vehicles. So you've got someone in the back, which an assault amphibian crewman, that rear crewman is keeping control of those infantry in the back. And then you slowly progress up to where then you're the driver. And then usually around the rank of lance corporal or corporal, you become a vehicle commander, where you're in charge of those other 2 Marines. You're in charge of the driver, the positioning of the vehicle. You're in charge of the rear crewman in the back. And then, once you get past the rank of like corporal or sergeant, normally like a staff sergeant, then you're in charge of, 4 vehicles, where you're now in charge of the vehicle itself. You're in charge of the Marines in that section. So yeah, that's kind of the background of that vehicle.
Okay. So as you had stated, you've been many places. You were, did you say Okinawa, Japan?
Yes.
If you want to just talk just a little bit about like what you did there, if you can, if you want to, this is entirely up to you.
Yeah. So whenever I was in Okinawa, Japan, so I went to Okinawa, Japan about 4, I think maybe 5 times. So we would essentially deploy over there for approximately 6 months. And then, as a company, we would deploy over there and we would have one platoon that would be a part of the Marine Expeditionary Unit over there. And they would go around to different areas over there, essentially as like a show of force, saying, hey, the Marines are here, don't do anything dumb. And then there was also platoons that would stay there on Okinawa, Japan, doing different field ops. And then like the last time I was over there, I deployed as a master sergeant and I commanded a whole company while over there, setting up different training areas for different platoons. I had one platoon out in Fiji. So we're not only just there in Japan, we also had like a platoon over in mainland Japan by Mount Fuji. We had a platoon on the Marine Expeditionary Unit over there. And then we had a couple of different platoons doing different training there on Okinawa.
Wow. I am always just amazed because obviously I never had the backbone to join the military, so I love listening to stories. You did say that you did go into Iraq, correct?
Yes.
If you want to and if you can, share what it was like to go there, I guess. Again, I'm trying to just find the right words.
Yeah. So going over there, it definitely was one of the hardest deployments that I did, just for the simple fact that it's a deployment where, like all the other deployments, it's like you go on a Marine Expeditionary Unit. Like, hey, I'm just going on a Marine Expeditionary Unit. What we call is like a float, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm coming back. I'm really in no harm. Whereas my deployment to Iraq was probably the hardest ones to leave because I didn't really know what I was getting into. And going over there, it's just going into the unknown because, you've got improvised explosive devices, you've got, terrorists, you've got people over there that are literally trying to kill us, Americans, and just going over there into the unknown was definitely hard to do.
Which I can't even comment because I have absolutely just no knowledge, and I will never disrespect anybody by saying I can relate because there's no way. In your time in the military, which is a 20-year successful career, again, I'm just asking if you can't or don't want to. I respect it. Do you have any PTSD or any from the war? Do you have anything like that? If that is respectful to say.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there were things that I had seen over there in Iraq that no 23-year-old should ever have to see. And just like there was one time where there was an explosion that went off behind us, and I went back there with a stretcher assisting with the explosion, and then just the battle fatigue after going, running back there. I did basically like 100-yard dash with a stretcher, full combat load, and then going back there helping them unload, offload, help with the explosion. Like there was literally a tire that flew past us from the explosion, and then just after getting back on my vehicle, I didn't remember the rest of the patrol. I don't know if my mind just like blanked out or like what happened, but like I just kind of blanked out for the rest of the patrol.
Right. Excuse me. So when did you actually retire from the Marines?
I retired just recently. Well, not just recently now, September of 22.
Okay. How did you finally just say, okay, 20 years? I mean, was that the goal after you started, or just, just like any I don't want to say just like any job, but there comes a time when you just gotta hang it up. You gotta. Was that the way it is, or did you accomplish what you wanted?
I did. And whenever I first started, and you'll hear those Marines and prior service members that are like, yeah, I'm going in and I know I'm doing 20. Whenever I first enlisted, I had no clue that I was going to do 20 years. And then every time my time would come up on that enlistment, I didn't have anything else going on, and I was like, you know what, let's keep going. And then once I got to the 10-year mark, I was like, well, I'm already halfway there. At that point, I kind of knew like, all right, I'm in it for the long haul now. Um, and yeah, I definitely accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish while in. And then, towards the end, I kind of, I've always been an entrepreneur, and I saw myself towards the end. I got into real estate, and I noticed myself towards the end not really focusing more on real estate, but I found that I was doing real estate and I just couldn't really, not really balance the two, but I felt that it was, a good time to transition out.
And I'm just going to assume that you don't make it 20 years in the military if you don't have a good work ethic, which is obviously carrying it over into your real estate. Now, do you own your own real estate business, or do you currently work for somebody with the vision of owning your own realty company?
So currently, so as a real estate agent, you are what's called an independent contractor, where, I mean, you can own your own brokerage, but that comes with the liability of owning your own brokerage. So I don't have the ambition right now to own my own brokerage. Right now, I'm with Compass, and the platform and everything that is there for me. I have everything I need within the company that I'm working with. So I don't have the aspiration at the moment to start my own real estate company.
Well, of course, of course. So anytime I meet an individual who's served in any type of the military, um, I always ask because as I had said that this podcast that I do is based on respect. And has anybody, has everybody just shown you the respect that you deserve? I know that's like a very blunt, broad question, but it just bothers me when people don't show enough respect towards our servicemen and women.
Yeah, I mean, I've had both spectrums. I've had it whenever I was still in that, I go to, somewhere to eat, and I'm getting, like an adult beverage, and I give them my military ID, and they're like, we don't take military IDs. And I'm like, what? And it just kind of, irks me that it's like, okay, you don't take a federal government ID, but you'll take a state ID. So that just kind of irritated me. But for the most part, just about anybody that I see that, I run into and they're like, oh, you were a Marine, or even buddies that I'm with, they're like, they were in the Army or Navy. Just about everyone that I run into, they're very grateful and, thank us for our service.
Excellent. That only because I've been in a place where an individual tried to show their military ID and they got turned down, and I was just like, that's completely disrespectful. And like you said, they'll accept a state ID, just not a federal.
Yeah.
So, in which is just completely disrespectful. I don't know. I have that most highest respect for men and women in the service. So I just lost my train of thought. I apologize. So 20 years in, and now you're doing real estate. Do you miss the military or no?
I do. Yeah, there are times where, I definitely miss the the brotherhood and the camaraderie that we had in the Marine Corps. Because like the hard, terrible times that you go through in the military, and the Marine Corps especially, it makes it that much more of a bond when you're going through like literally sleeping in fighting holes next to your buddy, and it's just stuff that you'll never forget.
And I'm going to assume that in your 20 years with the brotherhood and camaraderie, you have X amount of brothers and sisters that you met that you stay engaged in to this day.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I still have friends to this day. And even, when I run into veterans, I still feel that bond and that brotherhood. Like me and my wife went to dinner the other day where there was an individual, his name's Don Graves, that he was a Iwo Jima vet and a flamethrower. And like just running into him and meeting him was just amazing. And I could just feel that brotherhood and that bond still, even with a guy that I had never met, just knowing that he's a Marine.
And that's something that somebody like myself will never, ever be able to feel. And I think it's really important. And again, I'm just speaking as a person. I have no knowledge. Everybody who puts their life on the line in the military, to have that camaraderie, that brotherhood, that sisterhood, I just think that's really important because one of the things I had asked you, and again, if it's crossing the line, I respect it. Those are the ones that you could rely on because they could relate to you because they've been through what you went through during the time in the service. Is there one of the things that we advocate on this show is about mental health. Again, it's what you want to share. Is there any mental health problems from the service, from not being still in it, or anything that you went through? If it's okay to ask that.
Yeah, you're fine. I personally don't feel that I have mental health issues. I have been diagnosed with PTSD and TBI because I didn't know until I was processing out of the Marine Corps that literally any explosion next to you, like even a 50 caliber, which is a huge gun going off next to you, that's considered a TBI, a traumatic brain injury. So I don't have any physical things wrong with me. It helps talking about it, but I don't have any kind of like emotional distraught or anything like that. There are people that are way worse as far as PTSD goes. And like, I'm a functional, like I have nothing that debilitates how I function throughout the day.
Okay. Like I said, so one of our things is just, mental health is really important. Just, and I know some people that have been in the military and, sometimes, just it is what happens. And I just want to make sure, that you're okay. I mean, just having people on the show, it's just not about just trying to get likes and stuff like that. We genuinely care about people, and I just wanted to, and when I was thinking about asking you that, I'm like, I hope I don't cross that line, but because we care about people, and so now you're 2 years removed, and you're doing real estate, and you said that you were married. Mm-hmm. When you're not out in the real estate business, what are some of the other hobbies that you enjoy?
So I build models, which is very tedious, but yet the enjoyment of being able to take, little bitty intricate parts and piece them all together and make, like, I have one AAV, which is like basically a replica of what I did in the Marine Corps. I have a little AAV that I've built. I have an LVT that I still need to build. So just taking those little small intricate parts and putting them together, it just keeps your mind focused on the task at hand.
Absolutely. I completely understand that part of that. So I'm looking in the background, and are those like shovels from the Marines that I see hanging up? I was.
Yes, so it's I actually got those while on recruiting, and it's an old, I believe, World War II e-tool, and essentially where you see like the gold, right
Yep.
there, just above where that gold is,
Yep.
there's a little screw where it kind of, you can turn it. They're still functional, to where you can actually turn this. And this is how back in the day they would actually dig a fighting hole,
Oh,
because you would take this and now it's basically to dig. You dig into the ground and then you rotate it the other way, and now you got your shovel again, and you can shovel the dirt out of the hole. But essentially, whenever I was on recruiting for each month, if you got 5 people to join the Marine Corps, they had like a little ceremony, and they gave these like it's a Ace of Spades
that is.
award.
I like that. That is really nice.
Yeah.
That is really nice. Um, so those were all the notes that I took, and I just took some questions from listening to you. We got like a couple more minutes. This is just a portion of the show where I just open it up and I let. Okay, so I'll do this. If an individual, man or woman, was to come to you and say, "Hey, I heard that you were in the Marines. I think I'm going to sign up for the military." What would would your reply to that be?
I would initially ask them why it is that they're joining the military. And if they're joining the military, if they've looked at all of the branches, and then, just ask them, probing questions as far as what it is that they currently do, if they qualify, just ask them, different questions about life and what it is that they want to get out of life. Um, and then, of course, take them into a recruiter.
One more question, just piggybacking off what you just said, is uh, going into the military, the requirements, I guess I want to use, I hope that's not disrespectful, different now than it was back in 2000? I have no knowledge.
I definitely think it is. I know whenever I was on recruiting in 2007, not to like degrade it or anything, but the standard was lowered in 2007 just because the Marine Corps was trying to go from 172,000 to 202,000. We had to increase our force, so therefore the standards weren't as hard to get in. But now the standards are definitely a lot higher, just because I think they may have analyzed the current force and just making sure that the participants going into the military, well, the Marine Corps specifically, can actually meet that boot camp standard whenever they get there. That way they're not setting them up for failure. They want to, set the bar high. That way, whenever they get to boot camp, it makes it not really an easy process, but at least an accomplishable
No,
task.
absolutely. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, Mike, I know it's Sunday. I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I mean, is there any last advice or anything that you want to say? Because this is going to get seen by thousands and thousands of people.
I mean, I don't really have any, everlasting words of wisdom, but thank you for having me on the show, and it's been awesome.
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for, so many years ago stepping up, putting your life on the line. You were, I lost count of how many places you actually said that you went. I know at any given time, your life could have been taken from you. It is people like you, past and present, that allow me to sit here in the comfort of my home. So I just want to say thank you for doing that. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been JK'z of JK'z Rewatchable Hour. I have been here with Mike Ritrovato. Is that the right way to say your last name?
Sure is. Yep.
He spent 20 years in the military, Marine, Semper Fi. Now he is going to become a real estate tycoon. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'll be seeing your name all over. But Mike, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your service. Thanks for coming on the show. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go and enjoy your Sunday. So with that, I say thank you, and I will stop recording.
All right.
You've just stumbled upon JK'z Rewatchable Hour.